Welcome back to our training frequency video. Today, we're going to be talking all about whether or not there is a magical amount of times you should be working out per week or not. Hello, I'm Kelsey Nanini, certified strength and conditioning specialist and certified nutritionist. I'm here to help you go from frequent gym goer to strong, confident, educated athlete. And I'm going to be doing just that today as we dive into how often you should be or your client should be training per week. In case you didn't already know, there is no magic number per week that you should be training. That magic number is very dependent on you, how much you're doing now, your experience in exercise, the type of training you are doing, amongst other factors. First, it is important to determine how much time you actually have available. Do you drive to the gym? Do you work out from your garage? A single mom of 3 kids who is working full-time does not have the same amount of time in a day as a 23-year-old that works from home with no kids. Coaches, I'm getting close to the camera to emphasize something. Please remember, when you are programming, when you are coaching clients, we all live 24 hours a day. There's no arguing that. There is 24 hours in the day, but we don't all live the same 24 hours in a day. We don't all have the same time availability in the day. Remember that, okay? So the first piece is figuring out how much time you do have available. Now, this could boil down to the amount of time you have per workout. If you want to train 4 times per week, but you don't have a ton of time to train, then maybe we need to make shorter sessions and just make more out of those sessions. The next is current training status. Now, we most likely determined this in the second video I did, the needs analysis video. If you haven't yet watched that, make sure to watch here. There actually is a full series I'm doing. So if this is the first video you're coming across, don't forget to start at the intro video where I dive into what the series is all about and an overview of it. So you can start from there and go through the subsequent videos until you get to this one, which is video number 4. If you or your client hasn't really been training recently, maybe you took a break and you're coming back to it, or you actually are a beginner, welcome. We are so excited to have you, and I'm so excited for you to be on this fitness journey and so pumped that you came across this video. But if this is you, we would consider this a beginner stage. Welcome, you are going to see so much progress in this stage. It's going to be awesome. For frequency though, at this stage, 2 to 3 times per week is plenty. Now, let's say you have passed your beginner stage, you have progressed, you're feeling good, you've reaped the benefits, you're feeling all the gains, or you're just somebody who has been training for about 2 to 6 months consistently, then you would be considered an intermediate, which means you should be training 3 to 4 times per week. And then if you are on the more advanced side or your client is on the more advanced side, this would mean you've been training consistently for a minimum of 6 months. I would say ideally a year, but you know your way around the gym, you know why you're training, you're very intentional with your training. This means that you probably could progress to about 4 to 6 times per week, depending on the type of movement you're doing. I would not recommend doing CrossFit 6 times per week or workouts similar to that. Doing intense maximal loading or even close to maximal loading 6 times per week is not really enough ample time for recovery. If you are somebody who does train at maximal loads, you could alter heavy and lighter days, in which case you could increase the frequency in which you are training. But if you have something like a bodybuilding split where you're doing like back and bis, chest and tris, glutes and hamstrings, quads and calves, you're breaking it up by smaller muscle groups per day, you could get away with training 6 times per week. Do I recommend it? Depends on the person, depends on the results you're seeing. Ultimately, I'm a fan of doing less and having more quality movements, being more intentional with those movements, but to each their own. Now, I'm not going to get super nitty gritty in terms of the specific splits that you could be doing at each of these frequencies. There's definitely a time and place for that, but I could elaborate on that a ton. So if you are wanting that in a later video, comment that below, give me some feedback, let me know, and I can definitely prepare that for the future. A few other things we want to keep in mind here when we are thinking about training frequency. The first being the type of training you're doing. Again, I kind of touched on this prior, but if you are lifting at max or near maximal efforts, your body needs recovery time. Like, it needs it. This isn't an option. Even if you aren't necessarily feeling sore after training sessions, that doesn't mean that your muscles aren't producing a ton of effort and need that recovery period to bounce back. Especially if you are implementing in a ton of compound multi-joint lifts, give yourself the rest. And going back to that, bodybuilders, that style of training, you could get away with 5 to 6 times per week. Things like HIIT workouts. If you enjoy the higher intensity movements, first, make sure that it is true HIIT. I did link a video that I made on my Instagram about what HIIT is and how you can categorize it and do it properly. The link is in the video description, but just know you should limit true HIIT to actually 1 time per week, so it could be something supplemental in your training. The last piece of this is what else you're doing for your training. Are you training for a marathon or a half marathon or an Ironman or a long bike ride? Are you training for something that doesn't involve lifting, in which case you're doing some more aerobic activity? If so, you'll want to keep the volume of this training in mind, and most likely keep lifting at a more so performance booster, so something that you're just doing to enhance your training outside of lifting. In this case, I would keep your lifts at about 2 to 4 times per week, just depending on the intensity. The goal of your lifts at this point, if you are training for something aerobic, is more so to, again, supplement, to just maintain your muscle and keep the integrity of your connective tissue, joints, ligaments, tendons, that kind of thing. That about sums up the frequency. So next we're gonna head into exercise order, and I will see ya in that one.